wants to be a millionaire?
I don't.
Have flashy flunkies everywhere?
I don't.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey and from me. Well, today's very exciting. We've got lots of interesting and amusing and entertaining stuff. Some rather more serious than others, but all wonderfully farcical in a sort of a very bizarre and indeed at times troubling way. However, we need to keep our sense of humour, because if we don't, we're going to really get buried alive with the morass that is descending upon us from all quarters. I mean, it to me is actually a wonderment that we can be blitzkrieged with stuff the way we are by certain people whose names shall not be mentioned at this moment. So, if I may, shall we plunge right in? Nix, you ready? Give Matty a kiss first, yes. So, the first question, which is also not only a question, but almost an opinion piece, and a really rather good one, if I may say so, is from Joe Vickers. Oh my goodness, she's now collaborated with Procter and Gamble. I will boycott all their products in future. Sadly, I have an Oral-B toothbrush, but my dear, don't, whatever you do, throw it away. Don't cost yourself any money on behalf of such things as economic principles in situations like this. Anyway, to not interrupt your very good question, I have an Oral-B toothbrush, but if it breaks, I'll buy a different make. Good girl. If you want to stop her in her tracks, please look up what they produce and stop buying their products. There are plenty of similar things to buy instead. Couldn't agree more. I hope we all do this and spread the word too. Well, it's certainly their technique. I think it's called cancelling. And then when Procter Gamble see the significant decrease in sales that come after her collaboration, they may stop it? Several question marks and exclamation marks. Well, I'll answer that in a second. Will she get her husband to promote Fairy, showing him washing up, just to put over her point when 11 years old that men also wash up? Bet neither of them really knows what a kitchen sink looks like. Several exclamation marks. Well, my dear Joe Vickers. Yes, I don't know to what extent I'm in favour of cancel culture, but I certainly think if you want to, I'm not going to talk you out of it. And I certainly think it would be very effective if people boycotted the products of companies that they do not agree with the representatives of. Well, your question is, of course, really, do I think that boycotting Procter and Gamble will make a difference? Yes, I think it will if enough people boycott Procter and Gamble. But before we get into that, may I make one or two points? I'm sure you're absolutely right, my dear, that there is no way that H and M are really very familiar with washing up. I'm sure they have plenty of people to do all of the donkey work for them. So However, of course, that's not going to play very well with their pose of being ordinary people. Yes, Archewell, their foundation, has announced that that Archewell is going to be joining forces with Procter and Gamble to uplift girls and women. I mean, such utter rubbish. To build more compassionate communities. And promote the transformative power of sport. Well, sport's transformative powers are something that the royal family in Britain have been addressing for some time now. And indeed, Harry did help to found the Invictus Games. So let's give credit where it is due in that regard. But what on earth does uplift girls and women mean? And building more compassionate communities? How? I'm struggling here, and maybe, Nikki, maybe you can help Marty to understand how it is that buying Procter and Gamble products and having this dud duo promoting Procter and Gamble products and earning money doing it, because make no mistake about this, this is another one of their merching activities. How is that going to uplift women? I can see it uplifting their bank account, but I'm struggling to see how it uplifts girls and women. I mean, you know, the really absolutely puerile rhetoric, the rubbish that pours out of their mouths and spews forth from their pens is just an insult to people's intelligence. Well, maybe now that Meghan and Harry are going to be endorsing Pampers and Ariel and Gillette and Head and Shoulders and Febreze and Olay, these are going to transform women's lives and turn them into more compassionate people with more compassionate communities. God, I have to say, have you ever heard a bigger load of rubbish in your life? You know, they say that their partnership notice with Procter and Gamble will focus on gender equality. Well, of course, darling, we all know all dollar bills are green, and it doesn't matter whether it's a man or a woman or anything else spending the dollars. Dollars are dollars. All dollars are green. Duh! Honestly, I mean, you just sort of want to scream with frustration at times with the rubbish that these people come out with. And they also say that they are going to be creating inclusive online spaces and resilience and impact through sport. Creating inclusive online spaces. Is that verbal tossing? I mean, what is it? What does it mean? What does it mean? You know, already there is a backlash because yet again Harry and Meghan have shown themselves to be totally insensitive to the reaction that people of intelligence will have when they're adding up 2 and 2. You know, Procter and Gamble have a very checkered history. Now, I am not saying that I actually expect companies and large companies to be whiter than white. I don't. But then I'm not an ace hypocrite who's setting myself up as some sanctimonious bishop of wokedom. So if I choose to buy something from a company with a really rather dodgy record like Procter Gamble's, nobody can accuse me of hypocrisy. However, their every posture is one of, oh, look at me, I'm so much more sanctimonious and precious and special than everybody else in the world. Crikey, I mean, buried in verbal feces is just unendurable. Well, let's just look at one or two things that Procter and Gamble's wonderful record is all about. In 2011, the company was slapped with a $149 million fine by the European Commission. That is, in those days, that was 211.2 million euros for price fixing with Unilever and Henkel. How moral is that, Harry and Meghan? Then in 2016, they were widely criticised by Amnesty International because of their use of child and forced labour. Am I imagining things, or do not Meghan and Harry present themselves as people of conscience? But no conscience where Oriental child labour is concerned, is there? What? Not black enough? Or not white enough? Not American enough? Not African American enough? I'm sorry, the whole thing's an outrage. And I have to tell you, one of my oldest friends used to be very, very high up at Amnesty International. And they take things like multinational companies like Procter Gamble using child labour very seriously. Now, there are loads of other things that Procter & Gamble have been accused of. In 2002, they were falsely advertising that their drug, Prilosec, could cure heartburn in a day when they knew it couldn't. And in 2017, they had a bizarre campaign called The Talk as part of the My Black is Beautiful platform. It shows Black American parents talking to their children about racism throughout the different eras. However, they were blasted, quite rightly so too, for showing mothers talking to their children in such a way that the only conclusion you could draw was that they were being anti-white. One really rather disturbing clip showed a mother telling her daughter that the threat of being pulled over by the cops was really due to being racially profiled and that they could be killed. Well, of course, you can imagine. You don't need to imagine because it actually happened. The backlash from the police and the law-abiding and law enforcement authorities. And they were accused of being anti the police. Well, I suppose that begins to explain the marriage made in financial heaven by Procter Gamble and the Sussexes, who, as we all know, have joined the very woke brigade, have supported anti-police measures throughout the United States in the last year. I'm sorry. I do not agree with police brutality. When the police behave badly, they need to be called out. When they are irresponsible, they need to be called out. But this nonsense that the police are the enemies of freedom is very dangerous, and anybody who proposes it should be shut down immediately. A society cannot be free and functional without a degree of public order maintained by the police, or whatever you want to call the police, whatever the language is. However, it goes to the agenda. It goes to the politicization. It goes to the attempts by Harry and Meghan to reshape society in a way that is not always constructive. G.J. says, I have been willing to extend Harry's wife the benefit of the doubt, but no more. I was both outraged and disgusted when I learnt that Miss Malarkey had implicated Prince Michael and used his business arrangements in court documents to justify her own greed is in big block capitals, and her intent to monetize her title. This woman will destroy any and everyone to make dirty money and get her own way. Prince Michael was born into royalty. The actress married into royalty and acted as a royal for less than 2 years. The gall and the selfishness of this woman is beyond me. I'm done. I have lost any last consideration I had for her. Forgive my candour, but she's despicable. I now understand why you call her a grifter. Well, my dear, I have never called her a grifter, and I would not call her a grifter. I am rather too attached to my money and my reputation to call her a grifter. If you want to call her a grifter, that's up to you, but I'm not calling her a grifter. What I have called her, and I will continue to call her, is an operator. She is an operator of the highest order. She is bombarding us, absolutely bombarding us with her successes, because make no mistake about it, they are her successes. I have been very reliably informed that Meghan and Harry are like pigs in a pig pen in Montecito. They are absolutely thrilled beyond compare. They are wallowing in the mire that they have caused for everybody else. And they are thrilled to the core that their game plan and their agendas are being brought to fruition with the alacrity and the efficiency that they are being effected, that are being realized. Make no mistake about it, at this point, they are quite rightly as jubilant as they evidently are. They are, as I said, like pigs in the mire, wallowing delightedly, contentedly, happily, and greedily in all the muck that they have created, because they are using it to march, and they are marching apparently very successfully. They are cutting very, very productive, they hope, deals with very well-established companies. Procter Gamble is only the latest of their successes. They have had several successes recently. There has been the success of the copyright claim against the Mail on Sunday, which I am told she still can't wipe the smile off her face because of. She, I am told, was absolutely thrilled, as was he, by the fact that Sunshine Sachs managed to organise the Vax concert in such a way that it looked as if Harry was given a standing ovation by everybody, when in fact the only people who stood up were the very few who were seated, who had been bussed in and who had actually been instructed that they had to stand up when Harry came on stage. So that whole thing was orchestrated. But you know, if you go to as many first nights as I do, it is, as I keep on saying to a dear friend of mine with whom I go very often, because she's one of the top angels in this country. You know, at the end of every performance now, everybody bounces up because, and I say, oh crikey, here we go again, the obligatory standing ovation. It's now regarded as good manners in much the same way that if you belch, you say, I'm sorry. It's just, it means nothing. But Sunshine Sachs knows, as do all the people who go to these first nights and press nights, that if they accord the production a standing ovation and or the cast a standing ovation, this plays well with the critics and the public. And the critics know, but the public do not know, that the whole thing is carefully orchestrated. It's all a big con. It was very astute of you to pick up the fact that much of Meghan's mischief, where Prince Michael was concerned, was included in her court documents, in the certain knowledge that this would get into the public domain. Well, you can imagine how the royal family feels about the fact that they opened their arms to this hustler, and this hustler and operator has been playing them and the American people for all it's worth, so that she can make herself a whole load of money, undermining them, twisting and turning their perfectly normal and or acceptable activities to allow her and that dolt of a husband of hers to make money in really what is the most unacceptable fashion. You know, there's a very famous saying that everybody who is a Christian must know. And this creature did go to a Catholic school, so she must know it as well. It profiteth not a man to gain the whole world and to lose his soul. And there is no way that your soul is enhanced by betraying the secrets of a family or using knowledge that you have gained to try to destroy and or undermine members of your husband's family, just so that you can make yourself a shed load of money. Yes, I agree with you. I think it's despicable. I think she is despicable. Her conduct is what leads me to believe that she is despicable. She readily dives into a sewer that any right-thinking person with any sense of decorum, dignity, or morality in the larger sense of the word would be very careful to avoid. Beatrix says, no doubt Harry's first wife put Princess Michael of Kent and her husband on an enemy's list for later retribution once Princess Michael of Kent wore a blackamoor brooch to a party that Harry's first wife also attended, and about which Harry's first wife raised a big stink. Well, it is quite possible, my dear, that you're right, because the creature in question is so unsophisticated and is so ignorant and is so happy to play upon hatreds that don't exist and create them where they don't exist, that the creature in question might well have been ignorant of the fact that Moretti Veneziano are actually symbols of racial inclusivity and not racist symbols. And now, I don't particularly like Princess Michael. I make no secret of it. However, right is right. And it is possible, and I need to say this because I need to be fair, it is possible that Princess Michael wore that brooch because she's also deluded, I've got to tell you. It's not only Meghan that's deluded. The both of them have a very great deal in common. And if you read my book, Meghan and Harry, the Real Story, I go into some of what they have in common. So it's really, as the Jamaicans would say, very little choice between a black dog and a monkey. So which one is the black dog and which one is the monkey is open to question. But in this instance, I will say, in fairness to Princess Michael, it is quite possible that she actually thought that she was going to, in her own deluded way, be praised for being so racially inclusive, that she was going to make a statement with her racially inclusive brooch that would gain her a lot of the approbation that she also demands, because it's not only Meghan Markle that's hungry for approval and attention and being worshipped. There's another vain creature in the royal family as well that's maybe not equally, but definitely right up there with Meghan Markle. Gimme, 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 gimme. And everybody's got to think how wonderful I am. And with all of the downsides of Meghan Markle in many ways as well. So it's possible to give her her due. But having said that, Princess Michael, like Meghan Markle, is an attention seeker and an attention grabber. And there's little doubt in my mind that she wore that brooch knowing that she was going to grab attention. It simply turned out to be the wrong sort of attention. I think that's where she miscalculated. Because, these pretentious posers, the people, the Princess Michaels and Meghan Markles of this world, they often get it wrong because they really have no empathy. And they actually are so up their own digestive system that they rarely believe that everybody thinks that every growl of their belly is a high C issued from the mouth of Angela Gorgiou. Let's put it that way. Elizabeth Bebesco says, "Thank you, Lady C. This is worse than the Greek tragedy. She and he are so dangerous to the crown." My dear, there are quickly developing two schools of thought on that question. One is that they are dangerous to the crown, and the other is that they are so cack-handed, so crass, so vulgar, so common, so obvious, and so artificial and pretentious that every time they open up their mouths, they make enemies for themselves and are perfect foils for the good behaviour of all of the other royals. So I think the jury is out on that one at the moment, but we will see. Contessa Jones says, "Lady C, please comment on the Vax concert. Donations were sent to Global Citizen, which is a charity listed under Charity Navigator. Apparently, this charity keeps 16% of its take for expenses and administration costs, with the breakdown being 7% and 9% respectively." Well, that's very big of them, isn't it, my dear, if I may interject? I mean, that's a really small amount to take. I mean, there are other charities and entities and foundations and non-profits that take 95%. So that's very generous of them. But let me not interrupt your question too much, because you then continue. They collected 302 million for Vax Live, which means after expenses, they netted 27 million for administrative fees. I wonder how that was split. Well, that's a very good question to ask. But I can immediately see right now that, many of the contributors will have been paid very good expenses for their time. And remember, you're dealing with people whose day is worth maybe 5 million. So a few hours in their day might be 1 million. You're dealing with people like Harry, whose fee for making a speech is $1 million. So I would imagine that the administrative costs and the expenses were very carefully applied. And I also know as a fact that in situations like this, there's always a reward down the line. My hand scratching your back and your hand scratching my back. So depend on it. All of the Sunshine Sachs clients who were roped in to make this concert the success that it was, because let's face facts, raising $302 million for any charity is worthy of admiration. Doesn't matter what the motive is. As I used to say in the days when I used to sit on or chair charity committees, ultimately, it doesn't matter what your motives are. All that matters is that you raise enough money so that the cause benefits as fully as it possibly can, and that the people who will benefit from the cause, and I'm not now referring to those who get expenses or administrative costs, because they are really being paid. They are on a salary, whether you dress it up as something or not. You know, charity does not involve a financial reward. And so I'm referring to the people who actually benefit from the cause. And it doesn't really matter, in my view. I think one has to take a broad-minded view of things, because many people have mixed motives, and not many people are genuinely altruistic. And certainly the Sunshine Sachses and Sussexes and all of that cabal talk a charitable talk, but walk a monetary walk. So it may not be apparent immediately, but you know, as Harry and Meghan said, they moved to America to achieve financial independence. Well, since they had it already, what they really meant was great wealth. IC says the US is already going through awful race relations right now, mainly due to media stirring the pot. All Meghan has done in this country is to help widen that divide. Some African Americans are buying into her garbage because they want to believe it, but we aren't all buying it. Well, thank you. You are yet another one of the people of colour who takes the time and trouble to get in touch to point out how completely invidious Meghan Markle's conduct is. You know, I saw something rather disturbing recently. It was a clip of Michelle Obama giving an interview in which she was saying about how terrified she and all women of colour are when their daughters or children get driver's licenses. In other words, that because you're black, you're going to be targeted and therefore made a victim. Meghan Markle also plays into this. Well, with due respect, Meghan Markle has gone to a great deal of trouble and expense to expunge every single bit of evidence that she has sub-Saharan antecedents. And therefore, I don't see how Meghan Markle can be on and on, as she always is, about colour, because she looks whiter than many white people. She's made sure she looks whiter than many white people. She's paid good money to look whiter than many white people. So how she can be constantly playing the colour card, and some people of colour are dumb enough to go along with it, escapes me. And I'm glad it escapes you, and I'm glad it escapes many other people who take the time and trouble to write into me. Because rarely it is mischief making of the highest order. And you know, Candace Owens recently made a very good series of points, not only about Michelle Obama, but also about Meghan Markle, you know, which is basically these are overprivileged women. And let's remember, Candace Owens looks black. She's a very good looking, a very soignée, very chic woman, but she definitely looks black. She doesn't look white. She doesn't look as if she's Mediterranean. She looks black. She's done nothing to erase her African heritage in the way that Meghan Markle has. And she made a few very interesting points, such as that, please give me all of this victimhood. You know, she's basically saying, oh, Meghan Markle and Michelle Obama, they're such victims. I mean, poor Michelle, you know, her children are constantly endangered, surrounded by Secret Service agents. She is constantly endangered, surrounded by Secret Service agents. She's constantly being abused, surrounded by great wealth, and surrounded by buffer zones of underlings. Meghan Markle, same thing. You know, I'm afraid it's really difficult to plausibly, except to idiots, present yourself as a victim of racial injustice, racial prejudice, and the preventatives that racial prejudice have imprisoned you with while you are in a $14 million house in Montecito, as Meghan Markle is, surrounded by staff, cutting deals left, right and centre. Of course, whether any of these deals are going to come to major fruition remains to be seen, because remember, they came up with this cock and bull story about how many hundreds of millions, or maybe it was a few billions, or maybe even a few trillion dillions of dollars that she was getting for doing Spotify programs. And to date, they've done one. So maybe each of their Spotify's broadcasts is worth 50 million. I mean, really. You would have to believe that base metal is gold if you believe that sort of rubbish. I want to end this on a relatively light note, because really, some of what is going on is so bizarre. I mean, Kafka couldn't have made it up. SLS says, Friday morning Kate's book Hold Still came out, and by Friday evening it was on the bestsellers list. Meghan's book was just slashed down on Amazon. Perhaps people are beginning to recognize who really is the real deal. My dear, that is certainly true of people in England, and I would imagine that it will ultimately be true of people in the United States. However, we need to understand that the American public is being bombarded, as is the rest of the world, because really news nowadays is international. Because of the internet, everything travels in a matter of minutes. And Meghan and Harry's people bombard us on a weekly basis. Just think about it. New book to hopefully knock Catherine Cambridge's book off the bookshelves. Doesn't succeed. However, the attempt is made there. Procter Gamble, Sachs, one thing after the other. And that's all in a week. I mean, you couldn't make it up. Literally, we are being assaulted. And now I would like to end with a little poem that somebody has sent in to me, which I think is very witty and entertaining and relates to the book that Meghan has so considerately written to uplift womanhood and mothers and show them how special she is and how special mothers are, she being the chief one, of course, and how if their children read The Bench, or maybe it should be called The Burp, that they will be uplifted and their children will be elevated into the stratospheric heights that she and Harry and Archie occupy. And this is the poem. Come, my love, and tarry forth upon this bench well perched. I'd never heard of you before we met despite my 100th Google search. A prince, you say? A duke to boot? Well, that's just fine and dandy. I'm against unearned white privilege unless it comes in handy. Let's talk of the family we'll raise, our babe, our kith, our kin. Let's speak of finding freedom and play our victim violin. For this great symphony we've started, over nations it will cross. And my love, while you're a father now, don't forget who's boss. And on that note, I think I will say thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. And if you have enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, share, press the notification bell, and please remember to keep the questions coming in the comments section. Sorry, I can't help laughing. I mean, the whole thing is just high comedy and great farce with, sadly, destructive elements interwoven. But thank you very much. Bye-bye.